So welcome to the restorative class tonight. So as I said, we'll use a few different props. So make sure you have a couple of bolsters, 2 or 3 blankets, foam block, belt. I think that should do it. And I'll just be going back and forth letting people in as they arrive. So if I'm slightly distracted, that's what's going on here at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to start a way I've been starting a fair bit. And that is, it's an effortless rest pose with the feet raised up on a bolster. So I'll show it to you so you can see. And you just want, hi Sarah, to put a blanket on top. You'll need a bolster, another blanket for the head, and the belt. And again, there's a number of Helens coming in. Great. So here, you're just simply going to place the feet up on the bolster like so. The belt, place it mid-thigh. And I'll talk a little bit about restorative as we come into the practice. And so you just find a way to perch upwards with the head supported on a blanket like that. Okay, so that's the beginning place. I'll refine. So you're lifting the feet up in order to change the position of the thigh bone. Okay, and so what it does is when we take the feet up, it allows the head of the thigh bone to soften back into the hip socket. Hi, Natalie. Hey, Hannah. Welcome. And Sarah, great. And so you want to place the belt around mid-thigh. So welcome if you're just joining. We're doing an effortless rest pose with the feet raised up on a bolster. Simple. And just like this. And a blanket underneath your head. You just pull the blanket right in. So the neck, the head is supported. The back of the body is resting into the ground. You can lift the pelvis a little, lengthen the tail of the spine down, right? And I would suggest use the elbows to lightly press into the floor and slide the shoulder blades down the back. And you can also take your hands around the skull and lift up through the base of the skull to lengthen through the neck. And then just rest your hands on the front of the body, a nice little drape there. And so you can see with the feet lifted slightly, as the feet are placed on the bolster, it's going to create the situation where the thigh bone rests more, it rests into gravity more directly. And it creates a softening. You can even slide the hands down and feel into the hip crease. And you'll feel that there's a soft tone to the hip crease. You want to feel that. We want the abdomen to soften. Okay. So the raising of the feet like that up onto the bolster will really help that. Now, on the other hand, you might find it's not comfortable at all. Hi, Sandra. Welcome. And in which case you can just put the feet on the floor. So you just let the body settle into it. So the feet perched up allows the lumbar spine to release down into the floor. And you would encourage that. So it's an interesting moment at the beginning of a restorative practice to feel how the body responds to to resting on the ground. Because you'll start to notice the patterns of holding and the structure of the body. And that's kind of important because, most of the time we're just, rocking along doing our things, right? All the stuff that we have to do. And then things happen and they might be stressful, and you have a encounter with somebody, or I don't know, the stuff of life. It kind of writes itself into the nervous system and the body responds. So with the restorative, we're kind of approaching gently releasing that kind of tension that gets encoded in the nervous system. And it's not necessarily through thinking through what happened, or if you're experiencing grief or some kind of loss, it's not necessarily remembering what that exactly is. What it is tuning into is the felt sense of the experience that's embedded in the physical structure. So the whole process of a restorative practice is one of release, and it's not necessarily, the intention is not necessarily to open the floodgates, the emotional floodgates, although that might happen. But there is an intention to move, little energy that may be stuck. They might have a certain tone in the body, like like can you breathe in quickly because something startles you and you kind of get stuck in a tensional pattern. So we are aiming to feel into those patterns without getting into necessarily the story about it. That might be part of it, because it's a very personal thing how you work with what's going on inside, right? So this time that we have in a class is really precious. There's a unique combination between a collective experience of, we're practicing together in different spaces and places with the intention to release in different parts of the world even, so that's kind of interesting. And yet there's a solitary aspect, an internal, you turn the attention inwards to your own body as a way to feel into the tension and begin a process of softening and opening. So as you rest here in this very simple pose, the effortless rest pose, with the feet kind of perched up on something, it could be a couple pillows or a bolster or whatnot, just begin to notice and feel the shape or the way that the back rests into the ground. So the ground gives a nice, firm, clear support. And sometimes when there's lots of tension in the body, you kind of move away from the ground. The tension pulls the structure away from gravity. So part of our purpose, if you will, is to gradually start to feel the tension and begin to release that tension in a way that enables a softening down, to feel a sense of support from underneath. And you might find at the beginning of the practice, the mind's going to be a little bit more all over the place. It's going to be thinking about stuff, that just goes without saying. You have a mind that's going to think. So what do you do? Because we do want to move towards a quieter state, which implies a mind that's a little bit in a quieter tone. Yeah. So you have to give the mind something to focus on. And the best thing to focus on would be your breath, right? Breath, very soft. You don't have to force it in any way. Just simply in the same way that you're touching into and feeling into the structure of your body. You also want to just kind of touch into the way the breath is actually moving. And that's interesting too, because that's going to reveal, it's going to shed a little bit of light on where and how you might be holding tension. And I think it's useful to place the hands across the front of the body if you want to. Again, there's an element of you, as we go through the practice, I'll show you postures, and you'll set up with the props and stuff that you have, the best equivalent I'll show you, and then you work it out. And of course, if you have questions, you can just put it into the chat and I'll address it globally. But, so if you want to put the hands on the front, you do. And the reason I'm suggesting it that way is just to be able to feel the way the diaphragm is actually moving. So the nervous system state will be revealed through the breath pattern. as well as the body pattern, the physical tension. It'll be revealed through the breath pattern. And you start to notice, is the breath short and shallow? Is there like kind of a unevenness to it? Is there like tension do you feel in the belly that's kind of inhibiting the breath in some way? Is it free? Is there a soft kind of, juicy tone to the way that the body is moving with the breath? That may be so. So you're just noticing, giving attention to the feel of the breath as well. Now, it's helpful to feel through your hands. There's the internal felt sense of the breath as the body, as respiration happens. The whole body actually moves with the breath, right? And so there's an internal sense of the diaphragm doing what it does to initiate breathing, where the breath kind of falls into the body, and that exchange happens between oxygen and carbon dioxide. Breath flows back out again. So there's that internal sense, there's respiration that is happening. At the same time, through your hands, you're actually feeling externally. So you have two directions of perception, one through the felt sense of the hands and one internally through the felt sense of the body moving from the inside out. And that just kind of creates a little bit more depth to the feel of things. And so settling into your own breath pattern, and it, of course, it's going to change the minute you lay on the floor and start to breathe. Or shall I say lie on the floor? So the attention, consciousness, the consciousness that you hold in the body is like a little magnifying glass. So you're shining the light of awareness on different aspects of yourself and going into it like a little bit like a scientist, except that you're in the experience of it as opposed to being a impartial outside observer. Maybe there's a bit of both. So pay attention to the feel of the breath. It gives a lot of information. It provides a focus for a mind that's a little bit, busy. And so, begin to focus on the texture and tone of the inhale and the feel of your exhale. There's nothing you have to, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it right. And like all those kind of ideas, you just set aside ideas and just simply feel what is actually happening. The body has its own, it's intelligent. And so as breath comes in through the nose being the most efficient way to breathe. And of course, if you can't breathe through your nose, you breathe through your mouth, it's fine. But see, can you feel the cool tone of the breath as it flows in through the nose and it flows down into the lungs? And there's a quality of fullness, maybe a sharpness, the energy of the breath comes in, and the exhale is nice and long, and the whole body, it softens over the course of the exhale. That's really key. Well, it's all kind of key. But particularly that exhale, especially if you're holding certain kind of tensional patterns, that the nervous systems in the body are being held. So that exhale gives you a chance just to release a little bit and feel held by the ground underneath, even if it's just for a split second. Breath comes in through the nose, it softly filters downwards. Breathe into the back edge of the ribs and breathe down. And then exhale long, just kind of almost like a sigh-like exhale, just releasing whatever may be there to be released. Again, everything in its own time. Now, what's also nice is take one hand up, one hand down, right? And as the breath comes in through the nose, send the breath down towards the lower hand. Equally, feel the breath rise to the top hand as you breathe in. And again, exhale long. Come into a comfortable breathing pattern where you're not, uh, gasping or grasping for the breath. And you kind of linger in the feel of it, and any part of the breath pattern that's enjoyable, just kind of, enjoy it. Linger in it, perhaps. I quite like the moment as the breath comes in, it flows down, it rises up, and there's a moment where you're holding the air in the lungs and it's kind of vibrant and sharp and energizing. I like that moment. I like to linger there. And then the exhale becomes very long and it has kind of a whoosh-like feel as the back spreads into the floor on the exhale. And then the breath will just fall back into the body. So there is a rhythm to find where there's an ease. So there's definitely a mood of ease throughout the whole restorative practice, which is pretty much on the ground, supported. We hold the postures for a period of time. And all this, of course, is for the sake of the nervous system to enable the conditions for quieting to happen, for this, what we call a downshift of the nervous system, where we shift out of being in a kind of highly mobilized state or an outward kind of mode or an energetic mode into a more, towards the relaxation response is where we're trying to go to. And so just enjoy 2 or 3 more deeper, fuller breaths, exploring the feel of your own breath without forcing. And so there is this shift happening from outside to inside, following the flow of the breath. So you're kind of shifting into a moment by moment experience. And you're just present to what's unfolding. And then again, you might feel things in the body in different places, spaces. So you allow whatever is present within your experience to be there. You don't push it away, you just kind of feel into it. But again, it's a somatic sense of feeling into the body rather than a mind narrative. And sometimes the narrative comes in, it's fine. But see if you can get back to the felt sense of what's going on in the body. Use the exhales to soften. And just see with every exhale the breath, can you soften a little bit an area of holding that you've noticed in the body? Okay, very nice. Now, as we proceed with the poses that form the sequence, if you feel at any time you need to stay longer in a particular pose because you feel the benefit, there's something going on, you want to stay with it, it's totally fine, right? And just catch back up when you're ready to proceed to the next pose. So here, when ready to move, after your next exhale, just softly draw the thighs into your torso. When you're ready, just softly draw the thighs in and just do a little hug in. And with the hands just below the knees, you can roll gently, or the hands to the back of the thigh, whatever works. Just roll across the back of the body and feel into the back, right? There might be tenderness, there might be tightness on one side. Maybe there's some tightness in the hips that, navigates up the spine. You're just kind of, again, you're rolling into the floor to feel, to understand better the pattern and begin to release whatever's kind of gripping right? And then once you've had a nice kind of roll, then go ahead and slip off your belt. And you're just simply going to place, we'll do a simple stretch of the hamstrings because it's just a good thing to do all around pretty much every day. Take the belt and place it across the ball of the foot and just stretch the leg upwards. And if you don't have a belt, don't worry, just put your hands to the back of the thigh. It's totally fine, right? And if the hands are at the back of the thigh, create a little bit of resistance between the two. If you need to bend the knees slightly, it's fine. Spread across the sole of your foot. So if you looked at your toes, you can try to see space in between your toes and press the ball of the foot a little forward of the heel, all within reason. You don't want to get so tense trying to spread your toes that it feels uncomfortable, but a little bit of space there is helpful. Broaden the back body into the floor. Bend the elbows a little bit to the side to lift the top of the chest and just, create a nice strength to the leg. There is a muscularity. You do it, this is a stretch. So you want to engage or fire the muscles. It feels like they're kind of, wrapping around the bones, and then reach upwards. And just use your breath. So breathe into the back. Exhale long, lengthen the spine. Just a few breaths where you feel like the breath is coming in, is flowing down, flowing into the back of the pelvis. Exhale, lift the top of the chest, maybe reach up a little bit more. Now, you can add a little bit more of an action here if you choose. So stretch out the left leg, roll the thigh inwards to send the leg down, and the back of your leg will come onto your bolster. So you reach out through your foot and then press upwards. So it's kind of like a scissor type shape to the legs as you reach up. So there is a reaching through. If you have to bend a leg, bend the top leg, right? And then you can always look up and see, is the pelvis level? Do you want to adjust the right hip a little bit down, maybe with your thumb? Right? And then from here, take the straps, and I like to slide them into my left hand as I open the leg to the side. Use the right hand to the side of the leg. So left-sided body grounds. The extent of the left leg down onto the bolster grounds the left side of the body. So turn the leg outward, slide the hand to the outer thigh, pull back with like you're pulling back the bow, the string of a bow. Just open the leg a bit to the side. And I'm using my right elbow into the floor to help navigate the stretch. The hand to the outer thigh, and spread the sole of the foot and lift up through the sternum. And I'm also quite attentive to the feel of my back and the floor. Back ribs are touching, but top of the chest is lifting. My elbows bracing. Legs are very steady. If I bend a leg, it'll be the top one. In fact, everyone can bend a knee if you want to get a feel for that. And then you can re-stretch out through the leg. So a few straightens and bends are always quite nice for the sake of the hip. In fact, I feel that quite nicely. Okay. And then just bring leg back up. Bend the left knee, perch it up onto your bolster or pillow, and then release the other leg down. Just have a moment where you feel. Okay, change sides. Put the strap on the left foot, reach upwards. Again, don't assume that the left side is going to be the same. Right, so the back of the body, I'm just sensing, I'm allowing the back of my waist to soften down a little bit because I have a bit of tension in the lumbar spine. Although you might find you want to maintain the lower back inward curve, and that's fine too. So see how it feels. All right. And then bend the elbows a little bit to the side, reach up to the sole of the foot. Make the leg nice and steady and strong, and use your hand to the back of the thigh as needed. Back of the neck is nice and long. Feel the breath come in through the nose, it flows down into the body. The exhale, you'll get the release of the spine and a lengthening through. Yeah. Now, you can reach out to the right leg. Stretch through and press the back of the leg onto the bolster. So it's right at the back of my knee, more or less, and keeping the foot nicely spread. You want to bend the top leg? Do. You can have a few bends and straightens if that feels like a nice way to release tension. And then take the straps into the right hand as the leg opens to the left, like you pull back along the belt, like it's the string of a bow, and use your left hand to the outside of the thigh. Just open leg to the side and play with it. Breath is soft, right? That's it. And then inhale, bring leg back up. Bend the right knee, perch it up on the bolster, unhook the belt, bend the left knee. Nice. Now stretch your legs over the bolster. Again, the back of the knee will be at the, at the bolster. Just reach the arms over the head and just do a whole stretch through. And you can kind of circle through your feet a little bit as you reach through. Circle the feet both ways. It's a nice kind of stretch. And release the body down. Okay. Bend up the knees. Draw the thighs into the torso. Do a little hug in, a little rock. And then we'll just roll to the side. And gently here. So you don't want to come up too quick. You're going to come up from the side. And take a breath. Okay. So we're going to go into a little sequence here. It's not a long holding. The intention of it is to release tension in the gut and in the rib cage. So I'm going to use a bolster. It could be a pillow. It could be a folded blanket. And it's going to go right on the side of my rib cage. I'll show you. It's going to go right at the rib level. Now I'm going to fold the blanket for my head, make it a little thicker. I have a foam block. It could be a book or something. I just want a little bit of height. It could be maybe a thicker foam block. That would work. So I need something for my head like a pillow. We're going to do what I call swooping scissors and, actually I call it swastika, but it's the shape of the lower half of the legs, like the Isle of Man. But I'll show you. And let me show you the sequence here so you get the pattern. And I want one more bolster, so if you have another pillow off your bed, that would be good. And I'm just going to use this bolster, or if it's a rolled blanket, you're just kind of creating a spacer for your thighs, right? And I actually quite like taking the top leg and draping it across the top of the bolster. So you can play with that a little bit. Now the key is moving this bolster. You're going to rest over right underneath the ribs. And so my arm is actually going into the gap. I'm like, oh, hello. And then I have this lovely little block pillow. And some people just, they just want to stay here. And that's fine. That's where you're at. You're just kind of resting on the side. But the swooping is this. You take the top arm, you just draw like a circle along the floor. And we'll do a few of those. And you roll across the bolster. And I'll show you the three things. So there'll be ample time in the pose for you. So once you have a visual, you don't have to get up and be looking at the screen so much. The second phase, once we do a bit of swooping, we're going to do scissors. So I push the bolster down. I'm going to stretch the top leg, and I reach the legs out. So this bolster becomes like a support on the inner thighs. So you see my legs are stretching out like that. And all I'm going to do is stay on the side. I reach the top arm over, and I'm going to touch in between my shoulder blades, like I'm touching the back space of my heart. And then as I reach, I'm just literally trying to stretch the whole side of my body. We're not there super long. It's just like a moment of reach. And then I'm going to come up from the side and do a little shufti of my little bolster pillow situation. And I make this right angles with the legs, right? And then from here, you turn the navel across, try to miss the chest. So you have to push this bolster right down. And take your forehead. I'm going to take the arm that's behind, it's opposite. I take it behind me. I'm draping it across my bolster and take the other arm forward. I do a little drape. And again, I get this lovely stretch along the side of the waist, and we'll stay there for a little bit. Okay, and then we'll do the three poses to the other side. Okay, so we'll start with swooping. So that is some sort of pillow-like structure. The bolster, or another stack of pillows underneath. and some support for your head. So you're draped, a side body drape, and you just stay there for a moment and you just kind of create with your house actually has quite a lot of props that you don't realize. I often use things off my couch, like even the couch, the seat part of the couch is quite useful. Throw pillows can work really well. And so when you're ready there, you've rested on the side for a bit, do a little bit of swooping, just take the top arm. It's just to start to release tension. And the fingers may not even stay on the floor. They might kind of rise up and you roll across the back of the waist. And then come back across and down. And so you play with it. Part of it's getting a little bit of a stretch going in your shoulder. And if there is a shoulder restriction, there's nothing stopping you take the hand directly across the top of the chest and opening this way. So the thing is, we're creating a little bit of a back arch across the bolster and coming through. And this is articulating the ribs and creating a little bit of space in the torso. So whether you want to swoop over or just go across the front. And some people just do big swoops and big circles all the way around, which is totally fine. There's not really a right or wrong here. It's just releasing and opening. So you do that a few times. And maybe you want to stay in a certain part of the swoop. I quite like rolling across the bolster and being in a semi kind of back arch across the bolster. That's pleasant. And meanwhile, the breath continues to articulate. So I'm using the breath and this internal sense of the breath, adjusting the structure of the body. Now, at a certain point, you come out of the rotation. And again, you can stay longer in any part of this sequence and reach the legs out. And it's, again, you're like scissoring the legs. The top leg, I'm directly stacking the hips. And I'm going to reach my hand around and see, can I touch the space in between my shoulder blades? The head will rest. And I'm literally just on the side with the legs reaching out. So I'm aiming to get a nice stretch across the whole, in this case, it's the top side, the left side for me, across the side. And you just take a few breaths in this kind of reachy type position. And then the legs, you release them and you press down with the top hand and just push the bolster down. So when you make a right angle with the top leg, that bolster is going to fit just beautifully from knee, shin to foot. And I'm looking at the relationship of my torso to the thigh, the other leg, the grounded leg, again at a right angle. And here you just tuck the bolster in and down, do a little rotation across, and then rest the head. Now, for me, the back arm went away from the camera. I'm going to drape it across the bolster, and taking it down. And I reach this arm that's closest to the camera, reaching it forward, and just going to drape. And you might find as you come into it, push the head support away so your nose and your mouth is free so you can breathe. And you're just draped in a way that creates a nice sense of rotation through the torso. You want to breathe into the back edge of the rib cage. Every exhale softening and releasing a little bit more. Now we're going to stay here a little bit, not super long with these rotations, just enough to release the tension that binds. If you need to make any adjustments so that it works for you, it's totally fine. Or adaptations with regards to the props. See if on the exhale, can you soften and release a little bit more. The downward aspect, again, has a quieting effect on the nervous system. The release of tension in the face, the downward position of the face, again, it starts to slow things down. But anytime you feel like you need to come out, it's totally fine. And you can always come back to effortless rest pose or child's pose, whatever you prefer. Helps to softly send the breath into the back body and down. The breath will naturally rise up. And the exhale is nice and long, has a kind of whoosh sensation of releasing, of softening. Okay. Now, again, if you want to stay longer, it's fine. Or you can just very gently, slowly come up and out. And then you'll just turn yourself around, right? And so you just kind of grab hold of your pillow bolster. You need to turn around the other way, right? And so we'll start with swooping. And you can just even drape on the side if that's a nice thing. Like if you just want to stay on the side rather than swoop, you can do that. And then we just have a little bit of rocking, of movement, just to release tension and, and to open the sternum a little bit. Whether the arm goes up and over or you prefer to take it across the front of the body and out, again, adapt it to work for your shoulder. It's just getting a little bit of movement here in a way that's nice. And move with the breath, right? So the breath is just a natural initiator of movement. And you might find there's a certain place you want to rest into. Maybe you want to open up a little bit and kind of drape. It's a nice thing to do. And again, always work with the breath. So follow the sense of the breath as the breath flows down into the body. Yeah. And exhale long and soften a little bit. And here we can come into what I've been calling scissors. Just reach out through your legs. The bolster will support the inner thigh. And then you can take the top arm around and just see, can you touch the back space of the heart? And you get this nice stretch along the whole top side of the body. That's the purpose of it. And you might find, for me, this is a really tight side, so it's kind of like a, sometimes I rock a little bit just to kind of get into it. And you breathe into the side of the waist, the side ribs. Exhale long and stretch through the elbows, stretch through the leg. The bolster along the inner top thigh, you can press the leg into the bolster to get a nice reach, or the pillow. And when you've had enough of the reaching, and you can stay a little bit if you want, then you just come up a little bit, move your pillow bolster down, make the right angles of the legs, and then you spend a little time turning the belly across. Fold one arm back, one arm forward. Push the support for your head a little bit away so that you can breathe. Right, and you'll stay there for a little bit. Just breathing into the side body, into the back of the waist. And you play with it, and you adapt it, and you work with your props. And in essence, it's a downward rotation. At any time you feel like you want to come out and change the pattern, it's fine. Just make sure you can breathe through your nose. And after a while, settle into the rhythm of breathing. Again, stay with the tone and texture of the breath. And if you feel, a place in the body that is talking to you, always send my breath there. Send the spaciousness of the breath to that place in the body, and then exhale long. Okay. And again, if you feel like you want to stay a bit longer, totally fine. And otherwise, gently, gently come up and out of the rotation. Take a few breaths as you derotate. And then what's nice is coming into child's pose. And I'm just going to take, since I have these kind of bolsters, it's more rectangular, I'm going to flip it to its tall edge. Most bolsters have a tall edge. Depends on how much you use them. I'm just going to pull it in. So, and I'm not necessarily sitting on it, but you could. I'll show a couple of methods because it might help with knees and things like that. So this first method, you're sitting on the heels. Maybe there's a blanket between buttock bones and heels. And you let the corner of the bolster go right into your belly. And that can be nice or not. So that might change your choice. And you come forward and you rest into it. And there's a nice sort of pressing into the front of the body that releases tension. The back body's nicely spread. And we'll rest here for a little bit. Another option is, if you don't want to sit all the way down, you sit up on it and you kind of squish your bolster so it takes the pressure off the knees and off the ankles. And what I would do here in this situation coming forward, well, I probably just use what's there. I come and I would fold my blanket maybe a little bit bigger so I can just rest my head. And that's quite nice. So that would have a little bit more of a downward facing position of the head. The other one, the head slightly turns, and so we'll turn the head after a little while. The final choice, if bending the knees is just not your thing, you just take the bolster, use that other one that's back there for your feet, and you lay or lie, I gotta get my verbs correct, over the bolster and rest the head down. Like so. So that's another nice way into the downward position. So see which one works for you, because everyone's going to have different things going on in the body. So you just have to pick the choice that's the most restful, particularly from the point of view of the nervous system. So if bending the knees is not an option, you do the downward shavasana variation. Do you want a little bit more pressure in the belly? You turn it on its tall side and press it into the abdomen. You just want to sit up on the bolster, a little bit more space, sit forward and up, and then get something for your head. There's any number of ways to play with it. And so pick the one that works for you. And once you're in the forward fold, the downward facing placement, the whole folding of the body in this way is very, it just kind of has a protective feel. You're protecting the soft underbelly, aren't you? And equally, you have the ability to breathe with ease in the back edge of the ribs, the sense of as the breath comes in, you can send the breath into the bottom tip of the lungs, which are at the back of the body. So you get a clear pathway for breathing in that way with the anatomy of the lungs. And the exhale can be this lovely kind of, again, an opportunity to release the patterns of tension that you may experience in your body, to feel, again, that sense of softening. And for me, it's quite a slow process. It's not like all of a sudden, boom, I feel relaxed. It's a process. And the whole, structure and time spent in the sequence is giving the cues to the nervous system that kind of overlap and they layer. And there's a gradual shifting into a different kind of place in the physiology. And it helps that you're kind of in your own environment. You have, you're in your home or a place that you can practice, and it feels safe. So that's really important from the point of view of nervous system. There's more ability to be able to, release a little bit more when you feel like you're in an environment where you feel safe. So take advantage of that. Breathe into the back of the body. Use the exhale, which is naturally quieting in its effect on the nervous system. Use it to good, purpose here. And continue to release and soften and allow a process to happen in the way that, that works for you. So stay with the breath. Your head is turned to one side and you're able to turn it to the other side. Do spend a little bit of time, the head turned the other way. If it's uncomfortable, after a little bit, just turn your head back the way, that works. So breath softly flows. The longer you're in a pose, the more acclimatized we become to stillness and to space. Okay. Now again, stay a little longer if you feel that impulse. Or begin to deepen the breath as a way to transition out of this pose. And very slowly, gently, if you're in the child's pose, you come up to sitting on your heels. If you're in the downward shavasana, you come through a child pose and gradually come sitting up on your heels. And just take a few breaths as you come to upright. And then you're just going to do a little crawl around and take the bolster. That was your kind of main support. And we're going to have that at the back of the pelvis. We have this other bolster or pillow kind of mirroring, paralleling that bolster. And then you just want to preset eventually the blanket for the head. You don't need it right at the beginning, but it's there waiting for you. And we have the belt once again. So you're just going to come to sitting and take the belt. If you don't have the belt, don't worry about it, it's fine. And you're going to place the belt around the mid thighs for this final part of the pose, of the practice. So this posture will flow into the final posture of the sequence. Okay. So you might want to position, if you have like another blanket, I would have it near, because eventually when you do end up in shavasana, you can just do this whole tuck yourself in. We're not going to go, like at this stage it's a little bit more active, but you're just thinking ahead. If you want the eye pillows near, just set them to the side so you can grab hold of them. So my feet, a bit like what we had in the beginning, my feet are perched on this second bolster, and then I have the first bolster underneath my pelvis. I just carefully lie back. Now the head is not on a blanket. Yeah, it's it's a fair bit away. I might want to, so I just have moved my bolster a little bit more squarely underneath the pelvis. You can play with that. Feet are perched. And use your elbows, press them into the floor to softly draw the shoulder blades down. You can take your hands around your skull and lengthen the neck spine. And I quite like the arms in a cactus type position. I just feel like I'm so nice. So you're upside down literally, and allowing this process of kind of like you're releasing off the bolster. The spine is being kind of traction, it's really stretched, and the front body is nicely open, which is quite nice after the child's pose. And so here, just spend a little bit of time experiencing the breathing, because it's, with the lift with the pelvis, it changes the the way the diaphragm feels. So when the breath comes in, you can send it upwards imaginatively. It's still like it was before, down in the body, but up against gravity. And then the exhale is amplified. There's this nice long exhale. And you can stay there for a little bit, just breathing and enjoying that sense of being upside down. And if you prefer, sometimes at a certain, sometimes you want more of an inversion, you can tighten your belt and just stretch your legs straight up for a little bit at times. And you hit outwards into the strap and just a nice release upwards. You still have this sense as you breathe in, you're sending the breath to your feet. The exhale is nice and long. And then you might stay there for a little bit, and after a little while, just perch your feet back down. So you're playing with inversion as a device for, as a position for releasing tension and instigating a relaxation response. The way the body's designed, it's going to pick up on the fact that you're upside down. The way the blood is flowing, it's going to initiate a relaxation response from being upside down. Anyway, this is more of a conversation about that. But so whether you have your feet on the bolster or you're working with the legs up, decide, or move between the two. Because sometimes you're up there and you're thinking, oh, I'm tired now. You can bring your feet down, it's fine. And sometimes I even have a moment where I just feel like I need to articulate my feet and kind of break out of the stiffness of the feet. And that can be nice. So see what calls to you. And then you might want a more passive moment where you just release the feet down and just kind of feel the tingling sensation of the effect of the inversion. And so we'll stay here for a little bit longer, whether your legs are up or the feet are perched up on the bolster. Play with it. Work with the texture and tone of breathing, the sense of sending the breath, towards the direction of the navel. This sense of the exhale being amplified by its position through the release of the diaphragm. It's like a nice emptying out. And then the breath naturally comes in. It comes into the body, it flows into the body. There's kind of an aliveness to it, an energy to breathing in. And the exhale has this quieting tone of release and softening, resting back into the ground. As the breath articulates, just see that the back of the neck remains long, that there isn't an inadvertent lifting of your chin. Rather, soften the chin a little bit down. Feel the back of the skull widen. In the chest, it's in a soft lifting upwards towards the throat. That's the feel of it. So particularly on the exhale, keep the lift to the chest and adjust up through the base of the skull. Whether the legs up or down, same thing. Okay, now, again, stay if you want to stay a little bit longer. Otherwise, you're just going to push the bolster or the pillow or the blankets that you're using for your pelvis. Just push that down to the back of the knee. The feet will slide out and rest on top of that pillow or bolster that you're working with. I would loosen the belt a little bit so it's not quite so binding. It's a nice sense of support, and you're going to pull the blanket in. I quite like to I fold in the corners of my blanket and make a little bit of a head cradle, kind of, stuff it around my head so I have a nice sense of support. And here is where definitely I'm going to want a blanket, because you want to be comfortable. So hopefully you have socks on. Your blanket's not long enough like mine. There we go, got it. Or you open up your blanket fully. Here's where if you have the eye pillows. I always say pillows for two. If you're gonna get an eye pillow, get two. Because the first eye pillow goes on the forehead. It's a weight into the forehead, releasing tension across the forehead. The second eye pillow drapes off the first and down across the nose. So there's not that much weight on the eyes, which I prefer. And I might pull or push the blanket support up to lengthen my neck. And whether the hands go on the front or underneath your blanket, again, figure out what's the nice way to be. Sometimes putting the hands at the hip creases is nice, or just by the sides of the body. So consider the best placement for you. I'm going to come out here and adapt, of course. Let's make it a nice experience. And so in the final posture of the sequence, it's kind of, it's the moment. It is, well, all moments are the main moments, to be really honest. But here you've had this cumulative effect of the different postures, the resting on the ground, the breathing, the releasing of tension. And so you're really at a point where there's the ability to rest inwards. Now, the relaxation response is a very particular physiological response of the body. You might go into a place that's very deep and quiet. You might still be a little bit active. So what I would say is go right into the tone and texture of your breath. And if there's something that's distracting you, maybe it's the way the prop is, or maybe you need a blanket to cover up even more, whatever it is, sort it out as best you can. Like, take away the challenge, right? If you can. Otherwise, you work with it. It becomes a way to work with the moment. And stay with the soft flow of the breathing. Relax the root of the tongue. When the root of the tongue softens, it releases the abdomen, and that's helpful for breathing. And it allows the body to rest a little bit more deeply into gravity. And you attend the pulse of the breath. Every part of the breath has a beauty to it. So as the breath comes in through the nose, it softly filters downwards. Feel the enlivening aspect of the inhale. So a little transition. Taste it. As the breath turns around, the exhale happens. There's this beautiful ability to release, soften, rest. Breath turns around, touch that moment. Breath comes back into the body. So you stay with it. That is, to a certain extent, a kind of discipline, if you will, of staying with the breath. And then at a certain moment, there's a release that happens, and you go with it. And you might go into a very quiet inward space. And I'm going to leave you in stillness shortly. But if you find that the mind gets distracted or whatever, come back to the texture and tone of the breathing. Follow it. The breath will take you where you need to go, and whatever is being felt through the process of release, allow it to happen, right? Allow yourself to feel what is unfolding in the moment and rest in the process. Okay. So I'm going to leave you in some stillness and I'll bring you out shortly. So I'm here, but I am going to mute just in case there's any ambient sounds on this side that could distract. Go right into your deep, gentle Shavasana, deep rest. Okay. Now stay inwards with the breath and just gradually begin to expand the physical breath just a little bit. The body stays soft, still just resting into the ground, inwards. And the breath just expands a little bit. Breath deepens. And as the breath deepens, start to feel the edges of the body, shape of the body. And at the right moment, you can just softly move the toes and feel the feet a little bit. And move the fingers, feel the hands a little bit. If the hands aren't already on the front of the body, you can slide them to the front of the body. Feel the breath through the hands. So it has a kind of a grounding sense, a sense of feeling the body in space and in time once again. And then if you wish, feel free to softly stretch the arms over the head and just take a nice reach through the body if you wish. Otherwise, you just stay as you are, emerging from the relaxation state gently. And then just eventually release the arms down, and you can bend up the knees. Place the feet up on the bolster. Rest there for a moment. And then eventually draw the thighs into the torso. Hug in, maybe a little bit of a rock from side to side, and you can slip off the belt if it's still on. And then gradually roll to the side and just rest on the side for a little bit and support your head in some way, whether it's with the hand or the arm. Breath is ever so soft and gentle. And then when ready, softly press up from the side. And when pressing up, keep the gaze gently down. And the head is the last part of the body to come to upright. So you're trying to maintain the even tone, the mood of ease, the inward tone as you come out of the posture. And then just come to sitting in a way that's comfortable. If you prefer to remain lying down, it's totally fine. And so as you come to the sitting posture, feel the pelvis nicely on the ground. And from there, softly lengthen up through the crown of the head. Release the shoulders down away from the ears and relax your tongue and soften the face. And just take a few conscious breaths. You're feeling the pulse of the breath from your center. And you stay in contact with the inward state, the quiet state, the stillness, the sense of space. And then softly fold the palms together into a prayer position. Gently inhale the breath. And on the exhale, softly bow the head. Good. You can release the hands, open the eyes, and on the inhale, gently raise the head up. Thank you so much.